Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan basically started with this caution to overly sensitive fans that whenever you give a disclaimer, you basically saying, okay, get ready. Here comes the trouble. And, you know, the biggest part of this whole thing is Joe Rogan is a announcer. Mm-hmm. You have to know your role. Like our announcers wouldn't dare say anything about a talent. And I think that UFC may need to kind of tell them, look, man, you're bringing heat on us because our fans are UFC fans, and there are a lot of UFC fans that are wrestling fans. And you're disrespecting the fan base. That's the number one thing. The second thing is he used the word ridiculous as regards to Jimmy Superfly Snuka's splash, which Jimmy is not here with us no more. And I took that really to heart as being ultra disrespectful.
Yeah. And
I guarantee you there's a lot of fans of wrestling that will look at him differently after seeing what he said and all of the negativity that came behind. And he's a comedian. He might put it on the fact, I'm a comedian. I was trying to be funny. Well, you're not a good comedian because it wasn't funny.
What's with lately, and it's not just Joe Rogan, but just the MMA community. What's with the MMA community's like lack of respect for pro wrestling? Listen, we all know that, you know, pro wrestling is entertainment, and I don't think, you know, pro wrestling tries to claim to be anything but that in a lot of ways. Like, what seems to be the problem that the MMA community all of a sudden has with pro wrestling? Because I always found that MMA fans, at least early on, were pro wrestling fans. But man, and maybe it's not just the fans, maybe it's part of the media of MMA. They just try to take shots whenever they can about pro wrestling. I just
think
don't
some
get
of it, they just want attention. Like people like him, and I say people like him, he's got a black belt. And I have a black belt too. Is holding my pants up, like that's irrelevant when it comes to the humanizing side of it, the humanity of who we're talking about. We're talking about people that are feeding their families. This is how these guys feed their family, and for him to come out and try to point out who the hell is he? Who the hell is he to be able to come out and say, oh, well, technically that hold wouldn't work. And, you know, that's a heel hook. Oh, yeah, you're smart, Joe. You are smart. You are so educated in the fine arts of jiu-jitsu, but you have never been at the top and competed against men and women that have excelled to be the greatest in the country, in the world for that matter. Like you can't go on the air regardless, even if you're a little podcast or any of that stuff. You can't go on and criticize people when you haven't been there. Like I'm at the point, I'm not going to challenge you to a fight. I'm not Wesley Snipes. And Wesley probably would have kicked your ass too. But I'm just saying, I'm not challenging you to a fight. I'm challenging you to a debate. Like, I would like for you to call in to SiriusXM Rush 93 and say something to defend yourself, because your slip is showing. Like, you have created a hornet's nest that's been unleashed on you. You can't go and criticize something that you know absolutely nothing about. I'm not going to come on this show or any other show and start breaking down jiu-jitsu. Even though I've trained in jiu-jitsu, and I've challenged everybody that ever came into our sport, Ron Waterman, to go so far back in the day, Dan Severn, I've been in with Butterbean, I've been in with a bunch of guys that are fighters, that are mixed martial arts fighters and boxers, and Shelton Benjamin, Brock Lesnar, and Brock kicked my ass. But I'm just saying, I digress. But like all of these guys, I wanted to learn what it is that they did so I could have a greater respect for it. And rather than you coming in trying to learn something, you rather break something down because you don't know nothing about it. Well, I'll tell you what, Joe, your ignorance has allowed your slip to show. And I hope that fans reach out to you on your podcast or on any way that they can get a hold of you and let you know that wrestling is an industry. We are WWE. The E is for entertainment. We are trying to entertain. We're trying to put smiles on people's faces. We're trying to take people out and put people in suspended belief. And we do a damn good job of it. And if you watch the show for 1 week without being critical and try to be entertained, you'll see that too. So for all the fans, I appreciate y'all, and I will hope that y'all will come to bat and let Joe Rogan know that he can't just talk bad about our industry. He can't talk bad about the people that have laid the foundation for what we watch and to be entertained by. Jimmy Superfly Snuka is an icon. He's one of the greatest wrestlers that ever laced them. And, well, he didn't wear boots, but he was one of the greatest that ever went between the ropes. And I'd be damned if I'm going to sit back and let him talk negatively about one of our great superstars. Your slip is showing.
There you go, Joe Rogan, your slip is showing. He called you. Listen, I'm in a total agreement with you, Mark. Like that Superfly leap off the top rope, that's iconic. That means so much to a pro wrestling fan. Anybody that grew up like me watching Jimmy Snuka in the early 80s and that leap off the top rope, that leap off the top of the cage against Backlund in Morocco at the Garden, that's iconic to us. Why do you want to take something that's iconic that happened decades ago and break it down and tear it down? Doesn't make any sense. Listen, Mark, you and I will go on the air. I'm not going to talk bad about MMA. MMA is a part of.
I love it.
MMA is a part of SiriusXM Rush 93. I'm not going to talk bad about it. There's no reason to. But what I do have a problem with is MMA and analysts coming on their air and sometimes on SiriusXM Rush's air and talk bad about pro wrestling.
Some of these people are these intellectuals that think that they've been hiding under a rock for years, and they think that wrestlers are trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're World Wrestling Entertainment. I mean, golly, for Christ's sake, guys, come out of that mentality and understand that we're trying to entertain people. We're a full-time feature film live every week, 4 days a week, all year long. Like, you cannot do what we do and not experience a level of pain that you will not understand in your industry. And you talk to anybody, Ron Waterman, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, like any of the greats and that have done it, and ask them, how do you feel after a wrestling match? And they will tell you, listen, I am beat up. I would rather train and fight one fight or 4 fights or 3 fights a year than to go 190 days of getting tortured. And we put ourselves through it to feed our families and gain the level of respect from our peers. It's people like him that makes it not fun.
And Brock Lesnar has said that too. Brock Lesnar has stated it publicly. The schedule that you have to go through as a pro wrestler, as a WWE superstar, is much more difficult than what you have to do in the world of MMA. And listen, Brock Lesnar has been at the highest level in both sports. You know, I think he respects, I would hope, both sports.
Most definitely.
But maybe when it comes to the MMA community, maybe it's jealousy. Maybe
it is.
I think maybe they see Brock Lesnar, one of the top names in their sport now in the WWE, Ronda Rousey, you know, the top name in their sport now with the WWE. There's no doubt that 2 of the top 3 names in the last 10 to 15 years in UFC are now part of the WWE, and even Conor McGregor has now branched out and have been a part of the boxing world. He's branched out of the UFC. So maybe you're hearing all these comments, maybe it's jealousy. I mean, obviously, pro wrestling is completely different than the MMA. So I don't understand why MMA, they always have to stick their toe in the water of pro wrestling has nothing to do with it. I think it's jealousy.
I think it's jealousy too, and a lot of people say, "Oh, it's acting." Yeah, it is acting, and we're highly trained actors. That's why you've seen throughout history the guys that leave, right from even Roddy Piper, and Hulk Hogan, and the list of guys that go on that went to did film. They were successful, and why were they successful? Because they were prepared. And for all of those people that look at us and say, well, it's entertaining, it's acting, you're right. And we're really, really good at it. And as soon as I'm able to get a role where I feel like I can shed some more light on that situation, it's going to happen. So all of the guys that it's no attack on MMA guys. This is something that's an attack on Joe. Joe is the one that has the medium. He has the platform to say something. But when you have a platform to say something, be ready for a rebuttal from everybody that has an opinion. And I have one. And my opinion is you need to mind your tongue, because there's a lot of people out there that may not be as nice to you as I am right now.